Well, hello and welcome to your guide on how to create your first macro. Now, just a reminder that macros are an incredible way to help enhance and increase your users' productivity. I didn't ever play with macros for a very long time, and I kind of can't believe I didn't because they're really I do understand why there are some real limitations to it, and so I'll walk you through some of those. But even in the use cases that you can use them for, I feel like it's so quick, so powerful, and can save your users so much time. So let's jump right into it. Before we build it, I'm going to just demo to you the macro that we're going to build. So we're on the opportunity page, and I have a couple of different macros here. And one is just kind of an example of sending a proposal, one's leaving a voicemail and calling back in 3 days, and the other one is like clearing next steps. So they're all kind of centered around the fact that I love this like quick action component for salespeople where they can track their next steps. A lot of times tasks are just honestly kind of cumbersome for them and they don't use them. And so I use this quick action here because they can also then sort and order their opportunities by this next steps due date in their list view. And it really just keeps their attention to the records that they need to focus on now instead of looking through all of their records every single day. So it does focus on this, so you can change and swap these things out if you needed to, but I just want to show you kind of a quick example of how this macro will work. Okay, so I'm going to click here and I'm just going to run this macro. And what you can see here is I've kind of put instructions in the description. I put what it's going to do, and it's going to put in the next steps, it's going to put instructions to call in 3 days, and then it's going to log a voicemail for today. So if I hit run, you can see it's walking through all those steps, and now it says macro was applied. Now the cool thing is a lot of these macros can actually even be used in list views in mass. And so there are times, for example, where if people need to do a quick cleanup, like closing out a bunch of opportunities, if you build them the right way, they can use and run those in bulk on their list views. Okay, so let's just see. We ran that macro. Now it said it ran it, but my voicemail is up. And actually, I left that intentionally because I want the user to select who they left the voicemail with. They'll select it, put in their notes, and then hit save. A fun quick tip for another side note, but something to check out, is quick text. I have this here just to save me time so I can demo this well to you. But quick text and macros, I think, are so useful because while as admins we build flows in the back end, and that kind of has to happen. They happen based off of all these different triggers, whereas like flows in this quick text can be based and managed really at an individual user level even. Like you can have managers who build macros where you don't have to manage it all, and then you can kind of organize it so just the salespeople see sales macros and just the service team sees service macros, things like that. And so they're almost like an automation built for the end user. So again, quick text, another thing, maybe you can Google that and find that and play with that as well. Okay, so notice my next steps were changed. And then down here, you had to complete this, and I'm just going to go ahead and click save, right? So that's the macro that runs, and it just helps, again, your sales team get through their updates really quickly. And so when you think about a macro, I'm going to go quick agenda at the high level for a second. You need to, before you create your macro, you need to kind of lay out and spend some time with your end users, making sure that you're building things that they're really frequently using, and that as you adjust this page layout, it's not going to kind of hinder other steps in the process. So that's one thing to consider. I would suggest just starting with a simple concept, and then you will be able to grow from there. So like if you implement this next steps, maybe you just implement a, clear out the next steps or something to that effect, or a call in 3 days macro kind of thing. Also, just note, of course, these are the best for really reoccurring use cases, things like reoccurring tasks, emails, templates, updating statuses, things like that. And then play with this in your sandbox a lot because there are some limitations, but you'll get used to them and then you'll kind of figure out how you need to organize your page to kind of work with you're going to have to work with quick actions and the macros together. So if it feels confusing to you, just follow this guide, take the steps, and it'll become so clear when you work with your own records, and it should make sense to you and feel better to you that way. Okay, so the steps I'm going to walk you through. We're going to walk you through building the macro. We're going to add I'm going to back up. I'm going to walk you through how to build this one quick action, and then we're going to build a macro. We're going to add the macro to the utility bar, and then we have to make sure we give access to our users so that they can run those macros. Okay? So let's dive right in with step number 1, where we're going to rebuild. I'm just going to briefly walk you through how to create this quick action. All right, so make sure you're on the object that you want to be on, where macros tend to be kind of object contained. So in this case, we're on the opportunity, and I'm going to hit edit object in my settings. On the left hand side, I come over to buttons, links, and quick actions. I'm going to click new action. And if I go too fast or too slow, you can of course adjust this in the playback settings to slow it down or speed it up according to your needs. In this case, for this quick action, again with macros, you can do create records, you can do a bunch of different things, but in this case we want to use the update a record because we're on the object, the opportunity object, and we're just going to call this next steps. Okay, so now I've labeled this next steps 2 just because I already created it so that you could see it in the demo, but I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Now take off any fields that you don't want. Now I'm going to leave stage because I do find that because macros can't edit fields in the Lightning editor or even on path, you often need to have like some of those key fields. You might need to include them in your quick action. Again, as you play with this will totally make more sense to you and be clear. The other thing to note is that I can require these here, and what I'll show you is, once I save that, if I'm on an opportunity and I can require them here, but not here. And so again, just something to kind of play with, like it's cool to know like when they are interacting with it. So kind of in this case, when they're adding next steps, I want to make sure they add a due date. But if they want to clear out the next steps and the next steps due, they can do that. So it just kind of is a way to organize your work and require fields when you want them to, or when it's kind of necessary for them. Okay, so that's really simply that. And then if I wanted to add a predefined field here, I could. In this case, I don't want to. Okay, so now I created this, but I need to add it to my Lightning record page. And so I'm going to go into my Lightning record page, open it up, and hopefully you already have one created. If you don't, then you need to create one. And of course you want to make sure you're editing the record that the Lightning record page that your sales team is going to be using if you're building this macro for your sales team. So then you search for related record, and then you will drag this over, and you can rename it, which is cool. So you saw, like, of course I'm creating a duplicate component here just so you can see, but I want to call it next steps 2. And then this, if you have lots of quick actions, you'll probably have to change these fields here, but it knew because I'm on this opportunity and I want to update next steps. Again, just trying to show you the power of what you can do here. You can actually also pull in quick actions from other objects, which is pretty cool. So if I would do that, if I had quick actions on the account, I could pull them in here, which is, again, opens up the power of what you can do. Okay, So we're deleting that because I already have it there, and then just saving that. All right, so then the next step is that we're going to build our macro. But to do that, you have to add your, like I would start by adding your macro. You need to add your macro to your app. So whichever, let's go back to the end user. So I'm in the Sell More app, and so you can see it's in my utility bar. But let's say I needed to add it to another app. Then I'm going to go to App Manager, and I'm going to add it to, let's just add it to the, I don't know, sales app. So you hit Edit, and then you go to Utility Items, Desktop Only, and this is where you hit Add Utility Item, and you hit Macro, select that, and there you go. You just hit Save. So now users can access macros in that utility bar down here because that's how they'll access it. Okay? So once we have that, then we can start to build it. Okay, so now I can go in here and I'm going to hit this plus sign, and I'm going to just call this sample so that we know, or demo, you know. This is where I would put my instructions for what I've included, because I think it's super helpful to let the user know like what actions this is going to take. So next steps, set to call back due in 3 days, something like that. And then otherwise, and then additionally, we're going to do a left voicemail, right? Because we're copying the example macro I showed you. Now, this is also really important. It says apply to, and you need to make sure that you're, I tend to build the macro from the record that I want it to run from. But if not, you need to make sure these macros will only show up for those objects, okay? So we click Save, and then now you need to go into Edit Instructions. And this is where, if you do nothing else, go into your sandbox, into a development org, and this is really where you're going to be able to play and see what it can do. So you can start to see like, okay, when I hover over things, those are things I can select. So in this case, I said I was going to start with the next steps due. And so I click it. You can see over here where it's saying select next step actions. And so here I'm going to click the fields that I want to start to edit. I want it to be relative, so I'm said 3 days from today. And then I want to say call back. And if I wanted to, I could add this, like change the stage there, but here I don't want to. And then it's super important that you remember to click save, because if you don't want it to click save and you want to leave it open for the user to complete an action, then you can. So again, I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so then that action is done. If you ever need to edit this, you just click, I think you click in there, and then you can finish it out. Because see, now I selected that again, and it's trying to add it, but I don't want it to. I don't want to like select that box again. Okay. So I think you just select here and then you finish it out. Okay, so then after that's submitted, remember I want to come down here, click this one. Also you can open up the email and you can select an email template. You can, again, play around with it. There's so much here. So we selected the left voicemail, and now we want to put in today. And we put in 0 days from today. And then really we want to just leave it open because we don't have a way to identify who this, in this case, there's nothing dynamic. So we don't want to, pick this because then it would do that for every time it was run. So I just, again, I leave that open. Okay, so remember now I'm not hitting submit because I want the user to complete the name and the comments before they hit save. And so That's it. I'm done. I click save. Now, before you leave, you have to know, like this is, I've spent so many hours resolving this, and so I'm really glad that I can help you bypass my frustrations. You need to make sure you give your user access to the macros. So let's walk through that quick. Let's hit setup. And what you want to do is go to, what I would do first is you need to go to your sharing settings. And this is the one that I've spent several times. I forget that this is how it's set up. So again, hopefully saving you hours of time. Macros by default are set to private. So you want to go and find your macro object, and either you have to create sharing rules in the way that you need to share them, or you need to create a and or hierarchy, or you can move them to public read only, which is what I do. Or you could even probably do public read write, because you're going to give edit and write permissions in the permission set. So again, whatever makes sense to you, but I opened that, I changed it to public read. Again, I probably should change it to public read write, so the right people can, if I want to give edit access, I can. And then I literally just go to a permission set. And so you go to the permission set, and I already have it here, so I'm just going to show you the permissions that I have. You go to macro, and then you have a couple options here. You have manage macros that users can't undo. That's just managing the macros. Running macros on multiple records, so that if you want to allow people to run it on a list view, you can. And then macro settings. And so I just literally gave read access to the macros object. And then again, if you want that run macros in basically in bulk setting, you can turn that on. And then just also make sure that users have access to the app. And remember, in our case, it was either sales or the Sell More app. And so if they don't have access, see, I only have access, gave them access to Sell More. So if I wanted them to do it on the sales app, then I would, if that's what they use, then I need to make sure I give them access to that one as well. Okay. And then of course, don't forget, make sure you manage your assignment and assign that permission to your users, unless you include this in an existing sales permission set, for example. All right, so let's just go back to our records and try it out. All right, so I'm going to do all opportunities and just go to when I have them to. All right, so I need to update this run our macro. So I'm going to click macros, sample, and I double clicked, so it just went, and there it is. Macro ran successfully. It leaves it open for me. I'm going to select my contact, put in my notes, and hit save. And voila. So again, I hope this, the best thing to do is get in and explore. I hope this is a great scenario or use case for you, and that you'll get in and play with it. Feel free to let me know if you have questions. I'm excited for you to get in there and see how much productivity you can give back to your users.